John, you've recently been advising a consortium of mining companies to agree a model form of mine development agreement in Egypt. Can you explain a bit about what these are and why companies enter into them?
Sure. You and I have worked on a number of these in different jurisdictions. They are basically an agreement between the government and a mining company that wants to mine in that country. And they're often used to either supplement the local law where it doesn't contain all the details that people want, or in some cases to provide waivers or exemptions from some of the laws which discourage investment. Obviously, mining companies spend an awful lot of capex in developing a mine, so in order to ensure that capex isn't wasted, they need to know what the rules of the game are. Equally, the host countries really want to attract that development expenditure and as well the exploration expenditure. So that's what these agreements try and do. You've worked on a number of these. What do you tend to see mining companies want to get out of their mine development agreements?
Yeah, so there's a few things that are really important. One is being able to ensure, if they're at the exploration stage, that they can convert into a mining licence in due course. Like you say, they don't want to put money in the ground and then realise they don't have the mining rights that they need. They'll also want certainty that they can develop infrastructure and get the necessary operating permits without delay or being subject to onerous conditions. And they'll also want guarantees against state expropriation, that kind of thing.
And what do you find that the host governments tend to want to see?
As well as the investment in country, there's kind of wider social and economic benefits to the host government. So, and they'll put in provisions into these contracts like requiring certain local services and suppliers to work with the mining companies. They may require, for example, development in downstream areas, so require local beneficiation in mining projects. They will also require ways to ensure knowledge transfer from the mining company and expatriates into the locals. And they will have also the social impact side of projects is obviously really important, and they will want certain commitments to support local and community projects from the mining company.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the other big area these agreements cover is taxation, and I was going to ask you a bit about what that covers and what the companies are trying to achieve.
Yeah, sure. So what normally happens in mining jurisdictions is that the government will charge a royalty for the privilege of coming in and getting a mining licence, and often will require some additional form of state participation in the mining project by a shareholding or something similar. But obviously, if you take those royalties and equity stakes and couple them with all of the normal taxation that a commercial company in that country will pay, you very often find that the mining project wouldn't be economically viable on those terms. So in return for agreeing to some of the royalties and equity share, the mining company will often be able to secure a number of tax concessions. And we tend to see mining companies look to secure these concessions on expenditure that they would have to make towards the beginning of the project, where the impact on the return of the project is most pronounced. So typically we tend to see mining companies looking to reduce the tax demand from imports, from VAT on supplies and services, that kind of thing. Of course, the other important thing is that not just they've agreed what the tax position is on day one, but they want to have some visibility as to what the tax position will be for the full life of the mine, or as long as possible. How do you tend to see people secure that stability for the full length of the agreement?
Yeah, and actually often you'll see these agreements called stability agreements as another way of describing them. And it's really to have a clause in them that guarantees the terms that have been agreed will apply for a certain period of time. So, for example, you'd often see a tax stability clause that would apply for 10 or 15 years of the project. It might be a little bit shorter depending on the level of the concessions that are subject to it. But the idea is that contractually the government agrees not to impose higher taxes or costs on the project for that period of time. You can't require a government to undertake not to change its own tax laws, obviously. They have to be free to enact the laws that constitutionally, but effectively it means that if a regime changes and that imposes higher obligations on the project, that would be potentially a breach of contract and give rise to a contractual claim. But that's really only half the story. You might have a contractual claim, but then the question is, how do you go about enforcing that? And actually, if you're interested in that, we are going to put out a briefing in a bit more detail on these agreements and how you enforce them.